It started quietly, just a few words, repeated, so often they lost their meaning. When are you going to start doing something normal that will bring in money? At first, I laughed it off. A joke, maybe. A bad one. But then she said it again. And again. Every day. The same tone. The same sharp edge beneath the calm. Like she wasn't asking anymore, she was warning me. My wife used to speak softly, like every word mattered. Now, she spoke to me the way people talk to broken appliances. With irritation, not concern. She found new ways to remind me I wasn't enough. The food I made was wrong. The way I sat annoyed her. The silence between us became her favorite argument. I told myself it was stress. Everyone gets tired. Everyone drifts. But deep down, I knew something had changed, not around her, but in her. Something cold. Calculated. And what happened next? I couldn't have predicted it. Not in my darkest dreams. I thought I was living with my wife. Turns out I was living with a stranger. The cursor blinks like a heartbeat on the white screen, mocking me. It's been doing that for 3 hours, an endless pulse reminding me that I have nothing to say. No clever dialogue, no twist, no spark. Just the quiet hum of the laptop and the faint sound of water running upstairs where Claire is getting ready for work. She's always up before me, always composed, every hair in place. Every sentence sharpened to wound if needed. When she comes down the stairs, she smells like cold perfume and control. "You're still at it," she says, stopping behind me. Her tone isn't curious, it's surgical. I turn, forcing a smile. "Trying to be." "Trying," she repeats, like she's tasting the word. "Ethan, maybe you should stop trying and start earning." It's not new. She said variations of that line for years. The first time, it hurt. Now it just floats in the air like background noise. I nod, close my laptop, and pretend not to feel the sting. She takes a sip of her coffee and glances at the sink. "You didn't wash the cups again." "I was going to." "You always were going to." She sets the cup down with a click and adjusts her blazer. "You live in that fantasy world of yours. Scripts, dreams, and rejection letters. It's pathetic sometimes." Her words are precise. Efficient. They leave marks. But I don't respond. I've learned that silence is my only weapon, and my only shield. Claire looks me over, waiting for me to react. When I don't, she sighs, grabs her purse, and walks to the door. "Try not to waste another day, Ethan." The door closes. The silence that follows is louder than her voice ever was. I reopen the laptop, stare at the blank screen again, and whisper, "You're doing great, man." Sarcasm is my caffeine. My last script, Echoes of Midnight, was rejected yesterday. The email had that familiar corporate tone. "We appreciate your submission, but it doesn't align with our current creative direction." Translation: it's not profitable enough. I spent 6 months on it. 6 months believing it might be my break. Now it's just another file gathering digital dust. Outside, the neighborhood stirs to life. Cars starting, kids yelling, dogs barking. The world moves on. I stay still. When I first met Claire, she loved my ambition. She used to say I had a dangerous mind. I think she meant it as a compliment. Now, she calls it delusion. Somewhere between then and now, I became a burden, something she carries, because letting go would be messy. I open a new document. Title: Untitled Project. My fingers hover over the keyboard, waiting for the first line to arrive like a revelation. It doesn't. Instead, I think about Claire's skin, the way it used to smell like vanilla instead of expensive indifference. The way her body once curled against mine, searching for warmth instead of an exit. We used to have sex like it meant something. Now, it's a ritual, performed once every few weeks, mechanical, polite, almost clinical. She closes her eyes. I pretend not to notice. It's strange how love can dry up quietly, without argument, without reason. One day you wake up, and the person beside you is just furniture with memories. The cursor keeps blinking. I start typing words that don't belong to any story, fragments, confessions, half-truths. A man sits at a desk, watching his life dissolve through a screen. I delete it. Too close to home. By noon, I've written nothing. Just an ocean of white pixels. I pour myself another coffee, black and bitter, and stare at the framed photo on the shelf. Claire and me in Santorini, 10 years ago. We looked like strangers pretending to be in love for a camera. Maybe we were. My phone buzzes. A message from Jessica. Heard about the rejection. Don't let it break you. You're better than them. Jessica Lane. My editor. My one-person audience. We've known each other since film school. She's the only one who reads my scripts without looking for flaws first. There's something grounding about her. The way she listens. The way she believes when no one else does. I start typing a reply, but stop halfway. I don't want to sound desperate. Instead, I just write, thanks. Trying again. Evening falls before I realize I haven't eaten. The house grows darker, colder. Claire texts me that she's working late. No surprise. She always does when there's tension, which is every day now. I picture her office. Glass walls, laughter that sounds rehearsed, men who look at her too long. Maybe she likes it. Maybe that's where she feels alive. I pour a drink, whiskey, the cheap kind, and sit back at my desk. My reflection stares at me from the dark screen. A 38-year-old man with tired eyes and too many unfinished dreams. I whisper to him, "You need to wake up." A storm brews outside. The sound of thunder fills the silence that Claire left behind. I close the laptop, stand by the window, and watch the rain trace crooked lines down the glass. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wails. And just like that, an idea flickers, faint, fragile, but real. A story about a man who watches his life fall apart and decides to write his way out of it. A man who turns his pain into fiction, or maybe revenge. I smile for the first time all day. Maybe I'm not out of ideas after all. It started as another argument, one of those that doesn't begin with words, but with silence, the heavy kind that fills every room until it bursts. Claire came home late again. The clock showed 11:47. I was still awake, not because I was waiting for her, but because I couldn't sleep anymore without knowing how the night would end. She smelled of rain and something expensive, not the usual perfume she wore to work. This one was sweeter, more intimate. "You're still up," she said, pretending to be surprised. I closed my laptop. Hard to sleep when you're out so late. She tossed her purse on the table, kicked off her heels, and poured herself a glass of wine. "Ethan, I told you I had a client dinner." Clients that call you baby when they text. She froze, just a flicker. "You went through my phone?" It buzzed. I looked. Her eyes sharpened. "That's pathetic." "Maybe," I said, "but not as pathetic as you pretending this marriage isn't already a ghost." The glass hit the counter harder than she meant it to. Red wine sloshed over her fingers, dripping down her wrist. She didn't flinch. "You know what your problem is? You think pain makes you interesting. You think being miserable is part of your art. Maybe it is." She laughed, a dry, brittle sound. "Then congratulations. You're a masterpiece of failure." Something inside me cracked. I'd heard her insults before, lazy, dreamer, disappointment. But this one landed differently. Maybe because she was right. I was failing, and she was the only witness. I stood up, wanting to leave the room before I said something worse. But she wasn't done. She followed me to the hallway, her voice cutting through the dark. "My life would be better without you." Just like that. A sentence. Sharp enough to open me from the inside. I turned, expecting her to take it back, but she didn't. She just stared, lips pressed, eyes unblinking. For a moment, she almost looked relieved, as if she'd finally said what she'd been holding in for years. I went upstairs without replying. Each step felt heavier, slower, as if the house itself was mourning something invisible. When I reached the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. It's strange how a single sentence can rearrange the air. You start to notice the quiet differently. You start to breathe differently. Downstairs, I heard her moving, the faint click of her phone, the murmur of her voice. At first, I thought she was talking to herself. Then I realized she wasn't alone in the conversation. I moved closer to the top of the stairs, slow enough that the wood didn't creak. Her voice floated up from below, soft, secretive, the tone she never used with me anymore. "He doesn't suspect a thing." I'll be at your place in 20 minutes. The words froze me mid-breath. My first thought wasn't anger. It was something colder, emptier, like standing outside your own life, watching it burn behind glass. I didn't go down. I didn't confront her. I just listened as she gathered her things, humming under her breath. The door opened, closed. Her heels clicked away into the rain. I sat there for a long time, staring into the dark. My pulse was steady, unnaturally calm. I expected rage, heartbreak, something cinematic. Instead, there was only silence and a strange, electric clarity. I went back to my desk, opened my notebook, and wrote down her sentence. My life would be better without you. The ink spread slightly on the paper, like blood. I added another line beneath it. He doesn't suspect a thing. I'll be at your place in 20 minutes. And then, without knowing why, I smiled. Writers steal from life all the time. Moments, faces, heartbreaks. But this wasn't theft. This was transformation. Her betrayal wasn't an ending. It was material. I poured another drink and began outlining something new. A story about a man who discovers his wife's secret but doesn't confront her. Instead, he turns her deceit into a masterpiece. Every beat of the plot came to me with eerie precision. The husband would watch quietly, collect details, twist them into art. The wife would never know she'd become a character until it was too late. By the time I looked at the clock, it was past 2. The rain had stopped. The house felt emptier than ever, but I didn't mind. I had something better than sleep. I had purpose. When Claire returned, I pretended to be asleep. She moved carefully, removing her clothes in the dark, slipping into bed beside me. Her skin was cold. I could smell the faint trace of another man's cologne on her neck. My hand twitched with the urge to touch her, to ask why, to demand who. But I stayed still, breathing slow and even. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. Instead, I whispered silently into the pillow. Keep lying, Claire. Keep performing. Because this time I was watching. And I was taking notes. The morning after was eerily normal. Claire brewed coffee, humming faintly, as if the previous night hadn't happened. As if she hadn't told me she'd be better off without me, and then whispered another man's name into her phone. Did you sleep? She asked, sliding a mug toward me. Like a rock, I lied. She smiled, a small, practiced smile that never reached her eyes. I wondered if she'd practiced it in front of the mirror for moments like this, to keep up appearances. The way she moved that morning fascinated me. Every gesture seemed deliberate, cautious. She avoided my eyes when she poured milk into her cup, yet her tone was light. I realized, sitting there, that I was no longer her husband. I was her audience, and she was performing. From that moment, something inside me shifted. I stopped reacting. I started watching. When you've been betrayed, silence becomes your ally. It's not cowardice, it's strategy. I began cataloging her behavior the way a detective collects clues. Subtle things, easy to miss unless you're looking. On Mondays, she left early, saying she had client briefings. Her perfume was light, professional. By Wednesday, she was distant but civil. Thursdays, she transformed. The lipstick was darker, her dress tighter, her scent heavy and sweet, the one I'd noticed the night she lied. And every Thursday night, she came home late, her voice softened by wine and secrets. I started marking it all in my notebook. Thursday, new perfume. Smile lingered longer. Eyes brighter. She was in love, or something close enough to it to make her glow. But not with me. Once I followed her. I told myself it was research, but truthfully, it was obsession. She left around 7 p.m., claiming she had a strategy dinner. I waited 10 minutes before I grabbed my keys and coat. Her car led me downtown, through wet streets glinting under streetlights. She turned into a hotel parking lot, one of those sleek glass towers that rents privacy by the hour and charges for elegance. I parked a block away, hard hammering, and watched for my car. She stepped out, adjusting her coat, checking her reflection in the rearview mirror. Then a man appeared, tall, confident, maybe 40. His hand rested on her back with the casual ownership of someone who didn't have to ask. They walked into the lobby together. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Instead, I watched the revolving door spin behind them and felt something peculiar, not anger, not heartbreak, but a strange, thrilling detachment. For the first time in months, I felt alive. When I got home, I didn't cry or drink or break anything. I sat at my desk, opened my notebook, and wrote the first line of a new script. A man who doesn't realize his wife lives in someone else's reality. It was the truest thing I'd ever written. The next few days, I became two people. The first was the husband, quiet, obedient, unthreatening. The other was the observer, patient, analytical, feeding on every detail she revealed without knowing. She thought she was hiding her affair. I was documenting it. Each night, after she fell asleep, I'd go downstairs and write. Dialogue lifted straight from our arguments. Scenes inspired by her late-night whispers. Even her insults found their way into the script. You're not a man. You're a shadow. I wrote that line exactly as she'd said it once, during a fight about money. I didn't change a word. As the story grew, something unexpected happened. My anger turned to artistry. The pain became fuel. Every lie she told was a scene, every absence a plot twist. I was sculpting betrayal into beauty. Jessica noticed the difference immediately. When I sent her the first 10 pages, she called within minutes. "Ethan, this is raw," she said. "It's not like your usual stuff. It feels real." "It is," I answered too honestly. "Keep going. Don't overthink it. Just bleed onto the page." So I did. Every night, while Claire pretended to love someone else, I turned her deceit into words that finally meant something. Once, as I was writing, I heard her come downstairs quietly, barefoot. My fingers froze over the keyboard. She stopped in the doorway, watching me. "You're up late again," she said softly. "Yeah." Inspiration hit. Her eyes flickered toward the screen. For a second, I thought she might see the title, Lovers. But she didn't ask. She just nodded, expression unreadable, and went back upstairs. When I heard the door close, I exhaled. My pulse was racing, not from fear, from exhilaration. The risk made it feel almost erotic, this game of proximity and concealment. I looked at the screen again. The blinking cursor waited, patient as ever. "He doesn't suspect a thing," she whispered. "I'll be there in 20 minutes." I typed the line exactly as I'd heard it. And when I reread it, I realized something beautiful and cruel. She was right. I hadn't suspected a thing. Not until it was too late. But now I knew everything. And I would make sure the world knew it too, one page at a time. There's something almost addictive about pain once you learn how to use it. I stopped trying to numb it. Instead, I molded it, shaped it into scenes, characters, moments that bled like open wounds but looked beautiful on the page. Claire still believed she was hiding something. I let her believe it. The more she lied, the more I wrote. By now, the story had taken form. A screenplay about a man whose wife lives two lives. One with him, another with a secret lover. Simple on the surface, but the truth behind every line made it dangerous. I titled it Lovers. Jessica kept calling to check my progress. "You're writing like a man possessed," she said once. "Maybe I am," I told her. "You sound calm," she noted. "I am. For the first time in years." She didn't know how literal that was. My nights were no longer sleepless. My mornings had rhythm again. Coffee, quiet observation, writing. Even Claire's absence had purpose now. Every lie she told gave me another scene. One night, I caught her reflection in the window, her back to me, texting someone with a faint smile. The curve of her lips, the way her fingers brushed the screen gently. It was intimacy I hadn't seen in months. My chest tightened, but instead of breaking, I wrote, "Int. Living room, night." The wife types something on her phone, smiling at words the husband will never read. He watches her, not with jealousy, but fascination. She is alive for someone else. He, for the first time, feels nothing, asterisk. I stared at the words and realized how detached I'd become. The pain wasn't raw anymore. It was art, structured and measured. But sometimes, late at night, when I read back what I'd written, a strange heat crept through me. A mix of rage and desire. Betrayal has a way of twisting the senses. You start missing the person you hate, craving the body that deceived you. There were moments when Claire brushed against me accidentally, passing in the hallway, reaching for a dish, and it felt electric. Her skin, her scent, even her indifference stirred something dark. She'd look up at me briefly, eyes unreadable, as if she felt it too, but refused to acknowledge it. I began to write those moments into lovers, too. He touches her wrist. She freezes, but doesn't pull away. Their eyes meet. Two strangers sharing the ghost of what used to be love. Every page became confession, disguised as fiction. Every word was true, though no one but me knew it. When Jessica read the full draft, she called immediately. Her voice trembled slightly. "Ethan, this is brutal," she said. "Raw. Honest. It's like you've torn yourself open and bled on paper." "Good," I replied. "That's what I wanted." "It's brilliant," she whispered after a pause. "Painful but brilliant." I almost laughed. "It's not brilliant, Jess. It's just true." She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "I hope she knows what she's losing." The words hit me harder than I expected. "Whoever this is about," she said, but we both knew she wasn't asking. Later that night, Claire came home drunk, not slurring, but glowing. The kind of intoxication that comes from pleasure, not alcohol. I sat on the couch, pretending to watch something on TV. She dropped her purse, kicked off her heels, and leaned against the wall. "You're still up?" "I was writing," I said. She smiled lazily. "So, did you finally find your muse?" I met her eyes and said, "Yeah, you'll love her." She laughed, that sharp, cynical laugh that used to cut me. "Good. Maybe she'll make you less pathetic." She didn't realize how right she was. She was my muse and my villain, my antagonist, my undoing and my resurrection. When she went upstairs, I watched her silhouette climb the stairs, graceful, confident, unaware. I whispered to myself, "Keep walking, Claire. Every step takes you deeper into my story." The next morning, I printed the finished draft. 114 pages. My masterpiece. I read the final line out loud, just to feel the weight of it. "He doesn't understand a thing. I'll be there in 20 minutes." Her words untouched. Her betrayal immortalized. For the first time, I didn't feel like a failure. I felt powerful. I packaged the script carefully, wrote Lovers by Ethan Miller on the title page, and sent it to Jessica with a short message. "Let's see if the world is ready for this one." When I hit send, I leaned back and closed my eyes. The faint morning light touched the desk. Something about me had changed, and Claire was in the shower upstairs, at first singing softly. My calmness, listened, the quiet sound drift through the house, way I moved, like a memory from another life. She'd fed on my frustration, but the story of her affair was no longer hers alone. It belonged to me now. I gave her nothing, reframed, no anger, and ready to be seen. No pleading, just distance. She mistook it for peace. It was preparation. One morning, she lingered in the doorway while I typed at my desk. Her reflection hovered in the dark laptop screen like a ghost. "So," she said, folding her arms, "did you finally find your muse?" I looked up, forcing a small smile. "Yeah, you'll love her." She tilted her head, smirking. "Should I be jealous?" "Always." She laughed softly, but her eyes searched my face, uncertain. There was something almost nervous in her gaze, as if she felt a shift in the balance between us, but couldn't name it. She didn't know she was standing in the middle of her own obituary, printed line by line. The truth was, I didn't hate her anymore. Hatred implies caring, and I was past that. What I felt now was control. A steady, simmering power in knowing I held her entire secret life in my hands, waiting to be revealed at the right time. Still, part of me missed her, or at least the version of her that existed before ambition turned her heart metallic. The way she used to curl up beside me, the way her hair smelled after rain. I wondered if Adam noticed those things about her, or if he only saw what she showed, confidence, sharpness, the illusion of a woman who always wins. That week, Jessica called again. "I sent your script to a few people," she said. "Some of them actually responded. The story, it's got this authenticity, Ethan. People feel it." I smiled into the receiver. "They should. It's true." She hesitated. "You mean emotionally, right?" "Yeah, I lied. Emotionally." But my chest buzzed with quiet excitement. The plan, if it could be called that, was moving forward almost organically. All I had to do was keep pretending to be the man Claire thought I was, harmless, tired, uninspired. The real work was already done. That night, I watched her dress for another meeting. Black dress, pearl earrings, lipstick the color of sin. "You look beautiful," I said, meaning it in a way she couldn't detect. She blinked, surprised. "Thank you." A flicker of guilt, maybe? Or confusion that I wasn't fighting anymore. "I'll never know." She smiled, the kind of smile you give a stranger who holds the door open, then left without asking if I'd wait up. When the door clicked shut, I opened a new document. A second script. Not for production, for myself. Notes, raw scenes, fragments of emotion too dark for lovers. I called it the distance between us. It wasn't fiction. It was therapy. Int. Bedroom, night. He lies beside his wife. Her breathing is slow, steady, rehearsed. He knows she's dreaming of someone else. He doesn't mind. He's already writing her out of his life. Asterisk. Every night, I added more. Sometimes, between sentences, I'd glance toward the bed and watch her sleep, perfectly composed. One arm stretched over the pillow, lips parted slightly. There were moments when I wanted to wake her, to kiss her like we used to ask why. But then I'd remember the voice she used on the phone that night, soft and warm in a way she never was with me. That voice didn't belong to me anymore. The next morning, she brought me coffee, something she hadn't done in months. "Peace offering," she said lightly. "For what?" She shrugged. "For being distant lately." I studied her face. She was beautiful, yes, but beauty is cruel when you know it's no longer yours. "Don't worry," I said. "We all get distant sometimes." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I replied, taking a sip. "Just thinking out loud." She lingered another second, maybe expecting a fight that never came. Then she sighed and left for work. Later, I found myself pacing the living room, staring at the framed photos, our wedding, our trip to Italy, the smiles that once seemed real. It struck me how good we were at pretending long before the lies began. Maybe that's why she'd fallen for Adam. He probably didn't demand authenticity either. That night, Jessica texted, "A producer wants to meet. He says the realism of your script is incredible." My fingers froze over the keyboard. "Who's the producer?" She replied within seconds. "Adam Brooks." Ever heard of him? The name hit me like static through my veins. Adam. Her Adam. The universe, it seemed, had a twisted sense of humor. I stared at the message, pulse racing. Then I typed back slowly. "Yeah, I've heard the name." And then I smiled. Wide, slow, deliberate. Fate had just handed me the perfect stage. I closed my laptop, turned off the light, and listened as Claire's car pulled into the driveway. Her laughter drifted in through the open window, that familiar, hollow melody. I whispered to the dark, "You wanted a better life, Claire. You're about to star in it." When Jessica told me Adam Brooks wanted to produce Lovers, I laughed. Not out loud, not right away, just a quiet, incredulous chuckle that rolled into something darker. Adam Brooks, the man my wife whispered to in the dark. The man whose cologne lingered on her neck. The man financing his own exposure without knowing it. I told Jessica I'd think about it. In truth, I didn't need to think. I just needed time to steady the rush of adrenaline coursing through me. Revenge wasn't something I'd planned. It had simply arrived, elegant and poetic. 2 days later, I met Adam. He was taller than I'd imagined, with that self-assured grin producers wear like armor. We met at a cafe downtown, the kind of place where deals are made over coffee that costs too much. He shook my hand like he was doing me a favor. "Ethan Miller," he said, smiling. "You're the man who wrote the script everyone's whispering about." "Whispering already?" I asked. "Good stories travel fast." He ordered for both of us without asking. Confident, decisive, practiced. I could see what Claire saw, power. The kind that doesn't ask permission. "I'll be honest," Adam said, leaning forward. "Lovers hit me hard. It's raw, personal. Feels like something that actually happened." I met his eyes. Maybe it did. He laughed. "That's what makes it great. authenticity sells. If only he knew how authentic. He slid a folder across the table. A standard producer's agreement, neat and professional. I want to option it immediately. We'll get a director attached, cast the right people, and make something real. Something audiences will feel. I flipped through the pages, pretending to read. My hands were steady, but my pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. His signature already sat at the bottom, bold and confident. Jessica speaks highly of you, he added. Says you're a perfectionist. I try to be. Well, you'll have creative input. You've earned that. This story needs your voice. He had no idea how much of my voice he'd already heard. Whispered through his lover's mouth, replayed on the page. I signed the contract. The pen didn't tremble once. When I handed it back, he grinned. Welcome to the big leagues, Ethan. That night, I went home early. Claire wasn't there, late meeting, of course. I poured myself a drink, sat at my desk, and stared at the signed contract lying beside my laptop. Adam Brooks presents, Lovers. I whispered the words aloud. They tasted like justice. When Claire came home past midnight, she looked radiant, flushed, glowing, eyes bright. I didn't ask where she'd been. I just smiled. You're in a good mood, she said, setting her purse down. Got some news, I replied casually. A producer wants to make my script. Her brows lifted. Really? That's great. I studied her carefully. She was trying to sound supportive, but there was something else under her tone. Apprehension, maybe. What's it about again? She asked, almost too casually. Love, I said. And betrayal. She laughed softly, not catching the irony. Sounds like something you'd write. Yeah, I said. I think you'll appreciate the realism. She kissed my cheek, a rare gesture these days. I'm proud of you. The words were warm, but her eyes flicked toward her phone just as it buzzed. Reflexive. Guilty. I almost pitied her. Almost. I spent the next few weeks consulting with Jessica and Adam. We met often, calls, emails, script notes. Adam never suspected a thing. If he recognized the faint sarcasm in my tone or the deliberate way I let him take control, he didn't show it. He praised my writing endlessly. It's got this raw honesty, he said one afternoon, flipping through the pages. Every line feels lived in, especially the wife. She's so complex. Complex, I repeated, smiling faintly. That's one word for her. He chuckled. You must have known someone like that. Maybe I still do. Jessica didn't know the full truth, but she sensed something beneath the surface. Once after a meeting, she caught my arm and said quietly, Ethan, be careful. You sound almost vindictive. I smiled. Just committed to authenticity. Production moved fast. Adam had connections, money, and arrogance. The holy trinity of Hollywood. Within a month, the project was greenlit. He sent me a message that made me laugh out loud. We're going to make something unforgettable. He was right, just not in the way he meant. That night, Claire asked if she could read the script. I told her it wasn't ready. She shrugged, pretending not to care, but I could see curiosity flicker behind her calm facade. She had no idea she'd already lived every scene. Before bed, she lay beside me, scrolling through her phone. I turned toward her and whispered, Claire? She looked up. Yeah. Do you believe art can reveal the truth? She frowned. What kind of question is that? Just something I've been thinking about. Well, she said, setting her phone down, if the truth sells, sure. Otherwise, who cares? I smiled. You'd be surprised. She didn't reply. In the dark, I reached over and brushed her hair away from her face. She stirred slightly, but didn't pull away. For a fleeting second, I remembered what it felt like to love her. Then I thought of Adam's signature on that contract, and the feeling vanished. Filming began in late spring. By then, I'd learned that revenge doesn't always feel like fire. Sometimes it's ice, slow, quiet, deliberate. The kind that freezes everything around you until no one notices what's dying. The set was built on the outskirts of the city, in a converted warehouse filled with the smell of paint, sawdust, and ambition. The title Lovers was stenciled in bold white letters across the director's chair. My name sat beneath it, written by Ethan Miller. Seeing it printed like that did something strange to me. It wasn't pride. It was possession. The story wasn't fiction anymore. It was evidence dressed as art. Adam was everywhere, charming, loud, commanding. He knew everyone's name, made everyone laugh, and walked like he owned the world. Which, in a way, he did. He never once connected the dots. When he introduced me to the cast, I smiled politely. Then I saw her, the actress playing the wife. Her name was Ava. She had Claire's eyes, Claire's sharp cheekbones, Claire's elegance. It was uncanny. Even her perfume was similar, a mix of jasmine and something faintly metallic. The first time she rehearsed the dinner scene, the one where the wife lies to her husband with practiced ease, my chest tightened. She said the lines exactly the way Claire had once spoken them, word for word. He doesn't suspect a thing. I'll be at your place in 20 minutes. No one on set knew those words had once been whispered in my living room. No one but me. Adam watched her with admiration, his grin wide, proud. Perfect, he said. You've got the tone, just right, cold, confident, but still sexy. I almost laughed. He was directing his own lover's ghost and didn't even know it. Between takes, Ava asked me questions about her character. She's complicated, she said. Not just unfaithful. There's something hollow inside her, right? Yes, I said quietly. She mistakes emptiness for freedom. Ava studied me, curious. You sound like you know her. I do, I replied. As shooting continued, I found myself drawn to Ava. Not in a romantic sense, not yet, but something magnetic pulsed between us. She understood the role too well, felt it too deeply. Sometimes during late-night rehearsals, when she looked at me across the set lights, I saw recognition, as if she sensed the real story beneath the script. Meanwhile, Adam's arrogance grew. He'd pat me on the back, saying things like, "You've got a hell of a story, Ethan. People will see themselves in it." Some more than others, I'd answer. He'd laugh, clueless. Claire, of course, was curious. She asked questions about production, about the cast. "Is she pretty, this actress?" she'd ask one night over dinner, half teasing. "She's perfect for the role," I said. Claire smirked. "So she's beautiful." I met her eyes. "She reminds me of someone." She didn't press further. Maybe she thought I was flirting. Maybe she didn't want to know. Every day, on set felt like pulling a thread tighter. The film was becoming more real than the life I'd been living. I began to forget where the fiction ended. One evening, after a particularly intense scene, Ava found me outside, smoking. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "It's just strange seeing it all play out." "You wrote something true," she said softly. "That always costs something." Her words lingered. She was right. Truth always has a price. When we filmed the bedroom scene, the one where the wife confesses her affair, I stood behind the camera, watching Ava's trembling lips as she whispered, "I wanted a better life and lost myself instead." It was Claire's line. I'd written it for her, though she'd never said it. But in that moment, I could almost believe she wanted to. After the scene, Adam clapped his hands. "Brilliant. This is art, people." Ava's eyes found mine again. There was something unspoken there, pity, maybe, or understanding. She knew she was playing a ghost. Later, Adam pulled me aside. "You've got talent, Ethan. Real talent. I think this could be the start of something big for both of us." "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "A partnership for the ages." He laughed, unaware of the irony. That night, I wrote the film's final line. One last echo of the night it all began. "He doesn't understand a thing. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When I typed the period, I sat back and exhaled. For the first time, I felt something close to peace. The next morning, I watched the crew pack up the final set piece. Adam shook my hand, grinning like a king. "To lovers," he said, raising his coffee cup. "May it break hearts everywhere." I clinked my cup against his. "It will." What I didn't tell him was whose hearts it would break first. The premiere invitation arrived on a Tuesday, a thick black envelope sealed with gold lettering. World premiere lovers. Inside, 2 tickets. Front row. Claire found them on the kitchen counter, before I could hide them. "What's this?" she asked, flipping the envelope open. "The premiere," I said casually. "Adam insisted we attend." Her expression flickered, just a flash of tension that quickly smoothed into a smile. Oh, Adam's film? The one you wrote? Yes, the one I wrote. She studied the invitation like it was something dangerous. That's exciting. He told me about it, but I didn't realize you two were working together. I looked up slowly. He told you about it? She hesitated, then shrugged. Just mentioned he was producing something powerful, something real. I smiled faintly. It is real. She didn't ask what I meant. Maybe she didn't want to. That night, she spent an unusual amount of time choosing her dress. She even asked my opinion, which hadn't happened in years. The black one or the red? The red, I said. You'll stand out. When the night came, we drove to the theater together. The first time we'd done anything resembling a date in months. The city glowed with its usual indifference, but inside the car, tension pulsed like electricity. Claire looked stunning, of course. She always did. Her beauty had that sharp, cinematic quality that could turn cruelty into art. Adam would love that. The theater was buzzing when we arrived. Cameras flashed, journalists murmured, names were shouted. Adam stood near the entrance, surrounded by executives and actors, laughing loudly. When he saw us, his face lit up. Ethan. Claire, he said, moving toward us with open arms. You both look incredible. Claire's voice softened. Adam, congratulations. This must be huge for you. Their eyes met just for a second, and the air thickened. I saw it, the quiet flicker of recognition they couldn't hide. To anyone else, it looked like polite acknowledgement. But I knew better. I'd studied that look. I'd built an entire screenplay around it. Thank you for coming, Adam said, placing a hand lightly on her arm. You're going to love it. Oh, I'm sure I will, she replied, smiling just a little too wide. I stood between them, invisible, the ghostwriter of their own undoing. Inside the theater, we took our seats in the front row, Adam to Claire's left, me to her right. It felt like poetic geometry. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered to life. And then it began. The first scene mirrored our living room. Same muted tones, same atmosphere of quiet decay. I described it in meticulous detail. Claire's posture stiffened immediately. Then came the dialogue. The wife's cold remarks, the husband's quiet despair. Line after line lifted straight from our marriage, word for word. I felt her body tense beside me. Halfway through she whispered, "Ethan, what is this?" I didn't answer. I just watched. The audience was silent, drawn in by the raw realism, unaware that the story unfolding on screen wasn't fiction at all. Then came the hotel scene, the wife stepping into a dimly lit lobby, greeted by her lover. The music swelled softly. The camera lingered on her smile, that secret, guilty joy. Claire's hand went to her throat. I could feel her heartbeat through the air between us. Adam leaned forward, oblivious, grinning like a proud father. "She's perfect," he murmured. I almost laughed. Scene by scene, the walls of her deception collapsed under the weight of my words. The audience gasped at the realism, at the intimacy of it all. But Claire wasn't watching a movie. She was watching her life, stripped, dissected, exposed. When the actress whispered, "He doesn't suspect a thing. I'll be at your place in 20 minutes, Claire froze. I saw her mouth open slightly, her breath catch. A murmur rippled through the theater. People began glancing between the screen and her. Recognition spread like wildfire, subtle, then unstoppable. Adam's face drained of color. His jaw clenched. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Claire turned to me, her voice barely audible. You knew." I kept my eyes on the screen. "I wrote it." Her lip trembled. "Ethan, what have you done?" The film continued, relentless. Every lie, every whisper, every stolen moment, immortalized. I'd been careful not to name them, but truth has a scent that people recognize, even when you try to mask it. When the credits rolled, the theater erupted into applause. Hesitant at first, then thunderous. Cameras flashed. People stood. They called a genius, daring, brutally honest. Adam stayed seated, staring straight ahead. Claire's hands were shaking. I rose, adjusted my jacket, and whispered in her ear, "Show's over." Then I walked out. Outside, the night was cold, clear, mercifully silent. Behind me, I could still hear the echoes of applause. The marquee above the entrance glowed in the dark. Lovers, written by Ethan Miller. I lit a cigarette I didn't need, watching the smoke curl upward like a ghost leaving the body. For the first time in a long while I felt free, not from her, but from the version of myself that had loved her blindly. Justice, I realized, doesn't always come in flames. Sometimes it plays on a 40-foot screen. The silence after the film ended was heavier than the applause. People clapped, yes, but there was something uneasy beneath it, a strange awareness that they had just witnessed something too real, too intimate. They weren't sure whether to celebrate or whisper. I stood near the theater exit, watching faces as they filed out. Some smiled, some looked stunned. A few whispered my name. That's him, the writer. I could feel Claire's presence behind me before she even spoke. Ethan, she said softly. I turned. Her face was pale, her lipstick slightly smeared, her eyes hollow. Adam trailed a few steps behind her, jaw tight, skin gray under the golden lights of the lobby. Why did you do this to me? She whispered. I studied her for a long moment. I didn't do anything to you, Claire. I just wrote what was already there. Her hands trembled. You turned my life into a circus. Do you realize what you've done? I told the truth, I said. You were the one living the lie. Her eyes filled, not with tears, Claire never cried, but with fury. You're insane. Behind her, Adam's voice broke the air. Ethan, what the hell is this? I met his stare. You tell me, Adam. You produced it. He blinked, uncomprehending at first. Then realization spread across his face like a slow infection. Wait. You knew. I did. His expression twisted. You son of a... Careful, I said quietly, stepping closer. You're standing in front of photographers. And he was. The flashes had started again, not for the movie, but for the drama unraveling in the lobby. Reporters sensed blood. Microphones appeared like vultures. Claire turned her back to the cameras, lowering her voice. You've humiliated us both. Not us, I said. Just you. She flinched. Do you have any idea what this will do to me? To my career? Probably the same thing you did to our marriage. Her breath hitched, but she said nothing. Adam stepped in, trying to regain control. We need to talk, he hissed. About what? I asked. The film? The truth? Or the fact that you've been screwing my wife? He stiffened, glancing around nervously. Keep your voice down. Why? I smiled thinly. You didn't seem to care about discretion before. Claire grabbed my arm. Please, Ethan. Stop. Her touch startled me, not because it was soft, but because it reminded me how long it had been since she'd reached for me at all. I shook her hand off. You stopped asking me to stop a long time ago. The cameras caught it. Her pleading eyes, my calm refusal. Someone whispered, It's them. It's really them. The crowd grew louder. Adam muttered something about calling security. I walked away before he could. Outside, the night air hit me like water. My reflection stared back from the theater window, tired, hollow-eyed, but alive. Truly alive. I heard footsteps behind me. Claire's. She caught up, breath uneven. You planned this, didn't you? I turned slowly. Every frame. Her voice cracked. Why, Ethan? Because you said your life would be better without me. She went still. The words hit her like an echo she'd forgotten existed. That's what this is about. No, I said. That was just the first sentence. She stared at me, lips parted, trembling. For the first time in years, she looked small. Human. You could have just left, she said quietly. I tried, I replied. You just never noticed. She swallowed hard. You destroyed everything. I stepped closer. No, Claire. I revealed everything. There's a difference. Her eyes searched mine, desperate for a trace of the man she'd once loved. Maybe she saw something, regret, perhaps, but it was too faint to matter. Behind her, Adam appeared at the door, furious, shouting her name. She turned toward him, then back to me. For a second, I thought she might choose silence, but she didn't. She walked to him. Always the choice she knew best. I watched them leave together, photographers chasing behind, flashes cutting through the night like lightning. Jessica found me minutes later. She'd stayed behind after the screening, watching everything unfold. Ethan, she said softly, was that all true? Yes. She hesitated. You knew they'd be here. I invited them. Her expression darkened. That's brutal. I lit another cigarette. So was she. We stood in silence as the crowd thinned. Reporters shouted questions from across the street about art, about truth, about betrayal. Jessica touched my arm gently. What happens now? She asked. I looked up at the glowing marquee, Lovers, written by Ethan Miller. Now, I said. Now I start writing something new. She nodded, unsure whether to pity or admire me. As I walked away, the applause inside the theater started again, faint, delayed, but real. The sound of people celebrating what they thought was fiction. They didn't realize it was an autopsy. The world didn't explode the next day. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it just sits there, quiet and undeniable, waiting for people to catch up. The tabloids had their feast. Real affair behind Lovers premiere. Writer exposes wife and producer in shocking film. They didn't have proof, only speculation. But that was enough. Photos of Claire and Adam at the premiere filled gossip columns, framed by speculation about on-set inspiration. Neither of them spoke publicly. Silence, for once, didn't protect them. It made them look guilty. I stayed home. I didn't answer calls, not even Jessica's at first. The apartment felt different, lighter, somehow. The ghosts had gone quiet. Claire's things were still here. Dresses in the closet, perfume bottles on the vanity, her handwriting on sticky notes. I didn't touch them. Let them decay naturally, like props after the final take. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. Just empty in a way that was strangely peaceful. The storm had passed. All that remained was the debris. 3 days after the premiere, she came back. I heard her key turn in the lock just after midnight. She stepped inside quietly, heels clicking across the floor. Ethan, she called. In here, I said. She walked into the living room, wearing a coat too expensive for what she'd lost. Her eyes were ringed with sleeplessness. You're still here. It's my house, I said calmly. She nodded, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. The air between us was thick, with everything unsaid. You ruined me, she whispered. No, I said. You ruined yourself. I just wrote it down. She moved closer. Do you have any idea what they're saying about me? They're saying what you made true. Her jaw tightened. Adam's furious. He says you. Expose him. I finished. He should have read the script more carefully. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. You think you won? You didn't. You've destroyed everything for both of us. I stood, meeting her eyes. No, Claire. I didn't destroy anything. I revealed it. And that's what artists do. She stared at me, shaking her head. You call this art? This was revenge. Maybe, I said softly. But revenge is just honesty with better lighting. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said something I didn't expect. I loved you once, you know. I know. Her lips trembled. I didn't mean for it to happen. With him, I just wanted a better life, I said, finishing her sentence. I remember. Tears gathered in her eyes, but never fell. You could have just let me go. You already left, I said. I just made it public. She looked at me, searching for mercy, maybe forgiveness. I had neither to give. Finally, she whispered, What now? Now. I glanced toward the window, where city lights blinked like indifferent stars. Now you disappear. That's what people like you do. Eventually, the world forgets. She turned away, silent. When she spoke again, her voice was small. You think this makes you noble? You think pain turned you into an artist? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She already knew. She left without another word. The door clicked softly behind her, a sound that somehow felt like applause at the end of a play. I poured a drink, sat by the window, and watched the rain begin again. The city was awake, but I wasn't part of it. For the first time in years, I didn't want to be. Jessica called the next morning. Ethan, it's everywhere, she said. Critics are calling it the most brutally honest film in years. You've done it. Done what? Arrived. People are talking about you. I smiled faintly. Finally, they're listening. She hesitated. Are you okay? I think so. You don't sound it. Maybe that's just the sound of peace. We didn't talk long. She knew better than to press. That night I went for a walk. The streets were wet, the air cool. Posters for lovers already hung on billboards. My name glowing under the streetlights. Written by Ethan Miller. I stopped and stared at it. The faces of the actors stared back, but all I saw were ghosts. Claire's smile, Adam's smirk, the life I'd buried beneath a screenplay. People passed me on the sidewalk, talking about the film. One man said to his date, "It felt so real. You could almost believe it happened." I smiled. Almost. Back home, I opened my laptop one more time. A new document. Title, The Final Frame. Fade in. A man stands in the rain, watching the last story of his life dissolve into memory. He has no one left to lie to, no one left to love. Only the truth, finally quiet. I typed until dawn. Not for vengeance. Not for fame. Just to keep the silence company. By the time the sun rose, I realized something simple and devastating. The story wasn't about her. It never was. It was about me, learning that love without honesty is just performance, and I had finally called cut. When I closed the laptop, the world outside was gold. The rain had stopped. I stood by the window, breathing in the stillness, and for the first time, I didn't feel out of ideas, just out of pain. It's been 6 months since Lovers premiered. The noise has faded, the gossip, the speculation, the scandal, even the anger. Fame burns bright, then disappears like smoke, and I've learned that silence is the only fame worth keeping. The film is still streaming, of course. Critics call it a haunting portrait of betrayal and rebirth. They talk about the courage it took to write something so personal, never realizing how literal their praise is. Adam's name still flashes before mine in the credits, produced by Adam Brooks, though his career didn't survive the truth it funded. The studio dropped him quietly. The scandal was never confirmed, but Hollywood doesn't need confirmation, just rumor. Claire vanished from the city soon after. A mutual friend said she took a job abroad, London maybe. I didn't ask for details. Some ghosts are better left without addresses. People ask if I miss her. I tell them no. But sometimes when I wake in the middle of the night and the house feels too quiet, I can still smell her perfume, faint like memory itself. And for a second, I wonder if I missed the person or just the noise she brought with her. Jessica visits often now. She says she checks in to make sure success hasn't turned me into a cliché. We sit on the balcony, sharing cheap wine and expensive silences. She has that gentle kind of warmth that never demands anything from you. The kind that stays even when you have nothing left to give. "You ever think you went too far?" she asked once, watching the city lights below. I thought about it before answering. Maybe. But if I hadn't gone too far, no one would have listened. She studied me. "Do you still love her?" "No," I said. "But I still understand her. That's worse." Jessica nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. Sometimes I think she's the only person who truly sees me, not as a writer, not as a man with a tragedy, but as someone still learning how to live after turning pain into language. She never asks for more than conversation. That's enough. I started writing again. A new script. No betrayal this time, no revenge, no blood under the dialogue. Just a quiet story about forgiveness, not between lovers, but between the versions of ourselves we leave behind. The working title, What Remains. The process feels different now. Slower, calmer. I don't write out of anger or heartbreak anymore. I write because silence, when left alone too long, becomes unbearable. One afternoon, while sorting through old papers, I found Claire's wedding ring. It had rolled behind the dresser years ago, forgotten. I held it in my hand for a long time, studying the curve of metal, the faint scratches. It felt lighter than I remembered. I dropped it into the drawer and closed it without ceremony. Later that week, Jessica and I attended an award ceremony. Lovers had been nominated for Best Original Screenplay. When my name was called, the applause was thunderous, though I barely heard it. I walked to the stage, lights blinding. Faces blurred into one collective blur of expectation. The host handed me the trophy. Heavy, cold. I stood at the microphone, unsure what to say. For years, I'd imagined this moment, recognition, validation. But now that it was real, it felt strangely meaningless. I looked out into the crowd and said simply, "Every story costs something. This one cost me everything. Thank you." The audience stood. Cameras flashed. Somewhere in the distance, I thought I saw her, or someone who looked like her, standing near the exit, wearing red. Maybe it was Claire, maybe just another ghost conjured by the mind's need for closure. When I got home that night, I placed the trophy on the shelf beside the first draft of Lovers. I didn't feel pride, just completion. Before bed, I opened my notebook, the one filled with Claire's old lines, her insults, her lies, and tore the pages out one by one. I didn't burn them. I just let them fall into the trash, paper sighing softly against paper. It wasn't forgiveness. It was release. I poured myself a drink, walked out onto the balcony, and watched the lights flicker across the city. Somewhere below, someone was laughing. That full, reckless kind of laughter that people in love make when they still believe in happy endings. For the first time in a long while, I didn't envy them. I raised my glass to the night, to the ghosts, to what was gone, and whispered, "To what remains." The wind carried the words away, scattering them across rooftops and into the dark, where stories go when they're finally finished. And for the first time since Claire said she'd be better off without me, I believed her. And I was.